Hello, everyone. It's my great pleasure here to present the Web3 Access Protocol for Ethereum Virtual Machine. So my name is Chi, and a couple of quick intro for myself. I've been working in this space for 6 years. Before that, I was a software engineer in big companies and got a PhD. My primary interest is in infrastructure and also, for example, Ethereum Layer 2 and data availability technologies, and also received a couple of grants from EF and OP, like OP. So today, I'm going to give an intro of Web3 Access Protocol. So what is Web3 Access Protocol? It's an Ethereum native protocol that's designed to translate a URL that is started with Web3 as a scheme into a EVM core. If you're familiar with EVM JSON RPC core, there's a core that's able to call the Ethereum virtual machine in a simulated way so that we can access the corresponding result of the transactions and without basically pushing this transaction into the Ethereum consensus network. And why we want to do so is that we are able to using the power of the smart contract that is transparent programmability, and then allow to implement much more advanced feature besides current protocol for a lot of the apps, especially the front end of the apps right now is heavily reliant on centralized components, including centralized servers, IP, and also the DNS. So basically, we want the EVM is able to use in this protocol so that it can be run as a decentralized, unstoppable HTTP server. And so that it can not only be able to serve the, for example, Uniswap swap logic, but able to host the front end. For example, maybe Tornado Cash front end, and it may be Uniswap front end, but all the things now hosted on top of Ethereum smart contract. So it is already being registered as an Internet Authority scheme, and also it has been, its early version, which is 4804, is already finalized in Ethereum ERC repo. So why we want to have this kind of like protocol to access Ethereum on-chain data? One observation or one trend that we observe is that with the Ethereum scalability roadmap, there will be more and more data that can be accessed on top of Ethereum, either layer 1 or layer 2 in the EVM way. So for example, right now, Ethereum just launched their data availability upgrade, that is EIP 4844 two months ago. And the future upgrade of the DA will allow to publish 80 terabytes of data per year on top of Ethereum. That is a considerable amount of data that can be accessed from Ethereum. And right now, it's mostly layer 2 transactions, but in the future, you can easily use it to, for example, upload NFT images, or be able to use it to like host a personal blog, decentralized social network, all kinds of new types of transactions are now available on top of Ethereum with this scalability roadmap. And here, even without the scalability roadmap, a couple of the projects are already publish their data, for example, NFT images that is on top of Ethereum. So all these NFT projects, like, for example, Cyberblockers, Moonbirds, I don't have any Cyberblockers, but I just surprised found that they pay a large amount of money to store this SVG metadata on top of Ethereum, so that now you can read this data, use this smart contract calls, so that it returns kind of like a SVG, XML, all those content on top of Ethereum network for every node. And this is the narrative is that when the user buy the token of NFT, it should not only just buy the token smart contract and token ID, but also the corresponding asset, the images, should be also owned and available together with the smart contract. Because in the early stage, when people buy a lot of NFT, they're using centralized servers to host this data, like images. It can be used in IPFS, it can use in HTTP server. But when after a couple of years, if nobody would like to support this project, and all the data just disappear. This breaks the rule of Ethereum, of philosophy of Ethereum, is that deploy once, runs forever. But now, I buy the NFT, after maybe 2 years, if somebody do not run this server, sorry, you cannot find your images. You just have a token contract via the token contract and then some token ID. That's it. And so those projects, they follow the Ethereum philosophy. So now I want to deploy once, access forever. And they pay about 10 million US dollar per gigabytes in order to follow this philosophy. And so I was pretty impressed because they put so much effort, so much cost to realize that. And then I take a look at all these projects and found the one is called token URI that returns where the images can be retrieved. And I'm quite surprised to find that even though all this data, for example, I can call this data using smart contract to return all these images, like bitmaps or in whatever format, they're still using centralized servers to hold these images. I said, oh, why? Because there is no such a protocol to directly access those content on top of Ethereum and display in the front end. So for example, they still need to using some HTTP server, but now you are using Web3 access protocol, we are able to define, hey, this is their smart contract, this is their ENS address, and I want to call the random method of the smart contract and associate with this token. Then it will directly translate this URL into an Ethercode message and call into the EVM and return these images. And later, you can find that you can use a gateway or any approaches. For example, we have a native browser, so just type this thing, then it will automatically show all those images fully on-chain. And so in this way, we can bypass any centralized party, even DNS, which is managed by a few root servers, and also HTTP server, and other services like IPFS, because IPFS is not guaranteed the data is available as the same as Ethereum. And so this is my original motivation that why we need this kind of protocol to help to grow, to enable more Ethereum applications. So how to use Web3 URL? First of all, it's highly inspired by HTTP. So a lot of ideas, MIME, all these high HTTP request response, all these concepts are retained in the protocol. But one major difference is that instead of using a centralized IP address or its DNS name, it uses a decentralized smart contract. It can be using ENS. You can also use a 0x contract so that you can, using this single link, we can locate decentralized resources that is on top of Ethereum, and also multi-chain supported, which means that I can locate on mainnet data, that is chain ID 1. I can also locate any layer 2 or even other layer 1 EVM compatible chains. And second is that there's a way to translate basically the query part or the REST part, that is the domain-specific location of resources, into a core data that is supplied in the Ethercode, so that I can tell the contract, hey, the user would like to access the balance of Zuckerberg or balance of Vitalik, or I want to access the images of some MMT images with its token ID. So everything here is now very similar to HTTP. except that everything now is using a more decentralized smart contract to host all this corresponding logic. So to access the data, right now we have the gateway so that you can replace the corresponding ENS domain or the address like 0x 20 hex using the gateway to supply as a subdomain so that now you are able to access those content. The gateway will automatically convert those URL into an Ethercode message and call the smart contract, return the content from the front end. And we also have a multi-chain gateway and a Firefox extension, which allows users to type Web3, something, automatically translate to a gateway link. So the users just paste this Web3 link and access all this content. But still, this is kind of like sitting in the middle of Web 2 and 3. We call Web 2.5 way to access this data. And thanks to our community developers, they just voluntarily develop some fancy, really cool ideas. One idea is to develop a native browser. So it's pretty, like in the early stage, you see, it has just a couple of tabs without a lot of features of modern browsers. But anyone, it can just type Web3 and then with the link, then it will automatically translate it into Ethercode and retrieve the data and return from the front end. This is an example that we upload 100 megabytes of the Vitalik block on top of Ethereum. It's on a layer 2 because layer 1 is too expensive. But now the Vitalik can maintain its website using Ethereum, so that he does not rely on any third-party services. So one example now we are working on is to on-chain NFT images. Right now, even though the NFT images is not so hype at this moment, but I think this is a really great example, especially there are a couple of NFTs. They already upload all this data on top of Ethereum. So we implement a smart contract, follow the standard, tells that, hey, if you call a random method or random block method with the token ID, then we will return a string that tells how the images looks like. It's in the format of SVG, and so that we can access those images directly without any third-party services following the Web3 access protocol. And another thing is Vitalik block. So, at that time, there's about 40 megabytes. Right now, I think it's about 100. Probably I have some duplicate something. But yeah, at that time, we upload 40 megabytes of data. And because of Ethereum is too expensive, so we're using the Arbitrum Nova. And so as an experiment to see how we are able to pull a large number of data, like megabytes of data, but high-value data on top of Ethereum, and access in a fully decentralized way. And there's a couple of the crazy ideas that's flying around. For example, build a decentralized maybe TikTok, build a decentralized GitHub, build a decentralized Craigslist. One example is like decentralized GitHub. Why? Because we found the Tornado Cash public repo is being frozen, even though it's still be accessible because the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, but it's not able to modify or develop on top of that because of sanction from the US government. And consider extreme cases that maybe Ethereum may be also sanctioned because like a transaction, it processes also many transactions. How we are able to like circumvent all those centralized attack. And one idea that is this extreme cases, then why not we implement decentralized gates on top of Ethereum, most likely in a layer 2, so that now we are able to develop Ethereum on top of Ethereum. So this is something we envision that we are able to, as one indicator of the maturity, that's we believe that everything can be self-contained. We may using some centralized server to accelerate this procedure, but there will be the ultimate data that can be accessed using this way, and also following on top of Ethereum scalability roadmap. So right now we have developed this protocol for about 2.5 years. There are a lot of interesting ideas flying around. People are developing all kinds of crazy features, but there's still some issues that we are facing, and definitely we welcome everybody to help us to solve this problem. One feature is like modern native browser supports. For example, we are working with one of the top browsers to support this standard, and especially some of the browsers like Google Chrome has really strict about how to support new protocol like IPFS or Web3 into their native browser. So we still need a lot of efforts to make it happen. And this may also need some help from EF to make it happen. And another thing is like, as we have running the gateway, but we found someone maliciously report us. And so when people sometimes type in maybe in different file words, it may classify as deceptive website. So definitely we have put a lot of effort to fight back and fix these problems, but still some of the file words like capacity is really spawns slowly. So I'm not sure they fixed this problem or not, but they will be a different, I think this is the situation of the wild world, so that's something that we experience. Another thing is like the storage issue on EVM. The main reason is because right now EVM is super expensive to store any pieces of data. So the price is about 10 million per gigabytes. Right now it can be even more because the price increases these days, which means that suppose we want some applications that can serve billions of users, or maybe just 1 million of users, it will be unacceptable because the cost is so high and TPS is so low. So the solution is generally following the Ethereum layer 2 approach, both in terms of computation, at the same time in terms of the storage. That's why we are building the ETH storage, which is Ethereum aligned storage solutions, so that we are able to use Ethereum to verify off-chain storage, following similar rollout approach, and using Ethereum DA as a way to publish data. There are a lot of extensions, a couple of ERCs, for example, we can use a smart contract to standardize a file system interface, so that now we are able to use a smart contract to mark our file system and synchronize among them, so that it will be easy to, for example, create a job box on top of the ETH storage, but managed by smart contract. We are also running on a couple of standards, for example, supporting ENS. We create a field called content contract versus content hash, then right now for IPFS. So it tells us which contract is responsible for returning Web3 content in the ENS mapping. There's also a couple of others, like for example, support more customized HTTP features, because HTTP has developed for about a couple of decades. It has a lot of new features that's incorporated, especially there's a new HTTP2, and there's for example, streaming protocol. A lot of things now need to consider rather than a simple HTTP GET request or response. So that's all today's talk. I'm really happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you so much. It's really cool initiative. I wonder, like, it seems like the address doesn't come with the chain ID, so I wonder, like, what would the response look like? I mean, if it has, and I haven't seen, oh, there is chain ID, yeah. But how does the response look like when, for example, you have unsupported chains from the gateway? That's the first question. And the second question is about this gateway provider. It seems like right now there's one gateway provider. Like, is there going to be any mechanism for incentivization of these gateways? Because they're all going to be spammed by all these all these requests. Yeah, I have other questions, but I'll just reach out later.
That's great. So first question is regarding how we support this multi-chain, right? Different chain ID. It's pretty simple. It's just like, for example, have a list of the chain ID. It's similar to MetaMask, right? So I just configure each chain ID and its corresponding Zhou RPC service, configuring right now the gateway. Or in the, for example, right now is using the EVM browser. It also has a list of default RPC service so that it can just know that which chain ID is mapped to which JSON RPC and core. Definitely in the future, we want to have all this to be decentralized. One way, first, it's not decentralized. First, it's probably called verifiable. So that the content that return from the front end, we can verify is really from the smart contract. For that direction, we are working with Halos, which is a light client of Ethereum, so that we are able to verify any content that is returned from Ether core, make sure that that is actually returned from the latest block of Ethereum. And another way to enable fully decentralized access is using Ethereum Protocol Network, which are closely working with the Ethereum Protocol Worker team. So that now we are able to, using Ethereum Protocol Network to, it's kind of like IPFS, but every data is verifiable on top of Ethereum, so that now we are able to access all this content in a fully verified way and a decentralized way. But for that cases, it will be much harder to support multi-chain because right now Protocol Network only support mainnet. So this is current status of supporting different chains. For the second question, what's the question is about the
gateways, different gateways.
Gateways. The gateway is open source. Everybody can contribute to it. Everybody is able to play with it. We may have to have some grant to people who are able to maintain its personal gateway. For example, IPFS has ETH.nemo and ETH.link. So we may offer some kind of grant, maybe small, but sufficient to be able to set up and experiment all this feature or something new things on top of that. And also perhaps with also help from Ethereum Foundation. So there's some program that we are initiating. If you're interested in it, feel free to contact me. And then we can have some early grant program so that with some basic support.
Thank you for the talk. You showed this slide where you showed the different browsers which you are in contact with, Chrome and so on. I wonder, wouldn't it make sense to talk to Brave? I mean, they have general IPFS support, and yeah, it sounds like that it would be obvious.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, from crypto native perspective, Brave is really candidate. I really should add one logo that. So one thing is like probably how to connect with Brave in a more like organic community way, and then so that we can co-build these things is one probably way to the question. So right now we are more kind of like prioritize how to enable the underlying infrastructure, because like once we have more applications, on-chain applications using Web3 URL, for example, fully on-chain gaming or fully on-chain social network, all these ideas, crazy ideas being running on top of that, it will be much easier to develop these kind of collaborations with the browsers because people have more demand on verifiable way, native way to access this data rather than using our gateway or any gateway that everybody can run. I think that would be the kind of like a good timing to say, hey, we really need to have you guys to help us to enable this. But definitely if you have any suggestions or connection to help to accelerate this procedure, we are welcome to contact me, and we would love to see how we are able to explore all this together.
Thank you.
Thanks for your talk. You're clearly pretty inspired by this project you're working on. I was wondering what's the most powerful use case you imagine using all this technology for when you're working on this? Like, is there one thing or some things that inspire you as an image of how this could play out in the future?
So I think the thing is like, I feel the Web3, as Chris Dixon wrote a book, is read, write, own. So Web3 is something that enables ownership of everybody. But ownership is now, I would say, is just partially realized by the network. And so I think for those new applications, they require like higher level of ownership, for example, NFT images, or higher level of ownership of my social identity with my connections. Like, for example, if a customer is working towards that direction, I think will be other interesting applications that Web3 access protocol will enable. And definitely it's open protocol, so everybody can experiment all these ideas, so that especially to inspire people to think about what kind of ownership we want, and what kind of, maybe, for example, Ethereum, like decentralized Git that tells the ownership of the code. Right now, it's still, most of the code are hosted, are custodied by the GitHub. It's possible that we host this code also on top of the Ethereum, so that we can own not only, like, for example, images, but also our code or my trees, all these things. So there are a lot of open questions that are flying around, but thanks to scalability roadmap, this is it's becoming possible. Right now, before it's just like insane, right? Nobody would like to pay 10 millions per gigabyte data. But right now, suppose we can reduce to 1 to the 1,000, or 1 to the 10,000, or 1 to the 1 million, then everything is possible. Probably last question.
Yeah, but apart from what you're working on, obviously, what do you think is the best way currently to store videos, images in the most decentralized way possible, in your opinion?
Yes, I think right now, in my opinion, definitely if you have a lot of Ether, then definitely you can use L1, but paying a lot of money. But more practical way, I would say, is to using layer 2s, especially Ethereum. All this data will publish on top of Ethereum layer 1, and then now you can use in layer 2, so they will make a copy of data at a much lower cost. Yeah, that's the, I think, really also easygoing way, because all this layer 2 now is fully compatible with EVM. I think this is one direction. And suppose I would like to store those like low value versus there's a called values of data per bit. And for those data that may be relatively low, and there's also a couple of other solutions, like Filecoin RV, but it is not so Ethereum aligned, right? It's out of Ethereum protocol, and there's no way on top of Ethereum is able to verify the data is being stored off-chain. So that's why I feel there's a huge gap there, and that's why we are like to go through this Ethereum off-chain storage approach to solve this problem. Yeah, for Ether storage, I have a talk yesterday, so feel free to maybe go to the Ether Prague. There's a streaming, and that will tell us how technically we try to solve this problem.